everyone. Welcome to this Monday's edition of The Light Gate. We're coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast. We're on Facebook, we're on Roku, we're on Rumble, and we're on YouTube. We have a very, very exciting guest to bring you. I want to let you all know that we are actually in pre-record because we have a time difference. And to be honest, it's better to do it this way because our guest deserves a good night's sleep too. So thank you very much for coming in to pre-record with us in advance. And Preston, take it away. Oh, wait, one more thing. Thank you, Carnation. We love you. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Carnation. We appreciate your support. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for episode 149 of The Light Gate. As Dolly said, this is a pre-record, so we will be there with you in chat when the show airs, but I won't be able to ask questions of our guests unless we do it now. At any rate, my name is Preston Dennett. I'm your co-host. My lovely co-host is Dolly Safran. We're very glad you could join us tonight. Thank you so much. We absolutely love doing this show, and we love all of you out there. So I'm going to get straight to our guest tonight. Very excited. He's been in this field for a long time and is very accomplished. So let me tell you a little bit about our guest. Let me put up the banner here so you can see his name. Here we go. There. Yeah, very excited. Our guest is Brian Allan. He has researched the paranormal hands-on in all its forms for more than 50 years. While doing so, he has encountered everything from poltergeist phenomena, demonic possession, and apparitions to what is currently called alien abduction and reports relating to UFOs. He's the author of many books, all dealing with aspects of the paranormal and the occult, and specializes in certain areas that have caught the attention of the public, in particular, the enigma of Rosslyn Chapel. Can't wait to hear about that. Brian has completed a documentary film called The Rosslyn Frequency, made by fellow researcher and filmmaker Philip Gardner, and has contributed to another of Philip's recent productions called The Ancient Code, and to many other programs on radio and TV. Brian Allan gives presentations to special interest groups around the country. And yeah, here are a few of his books. Certainly not all of them, but one is Heretics, Past and Present. Can we now explain the unexplainable? Here's another, Book of Secrets, Aliens, Ghosts, and Ancient Mysteries. Here's one, Rosslyn, Between Two Worlds. Beautiful cover. Another, Project Phenomena, Evaluating the Paranormal. I love that he covers many different aspects of what's going on here. The Dark Messiah, Magic, Gnosis, and Religion. I Cast Thee Out, Poltergeists, Possession, and Exorcism. This is very cool. Revenants, Haunted People and Haunted Places. The Hole in the Sky. How amazing is this, that there are just that many different books that he has going on here. I mean, it's just truly amazing, and it's such an honor to have him on the show tonight. So without further ado, let me bring him in. Brian.
Hello, Brian.
Hi, hey guys, how you all doing? That's the first time I've ever been Can I just say that's the first time I've ever been introduced by a can of condensed milk. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I'm very, very impressed. I've got a number of books myself, so it's awesome to meet a fellow author and someone who understands that, this is not just one thing, it's many. And there's whole different aspects to all of this. And I'm just delighted to see the depth and breadth of your research. I didn't mention you also do book reviews for Phenomena magazine. And you reviewed several of mine very nicely. Yes, so thank you for that. Yeah. Very much appreciated.
Always said nice things, so you're okay.
Yes. So thank you very much. The check's in the mail. But yeah, I mean, this is amazing to me. You've got so much information, so it's hard to even think of where to start. But I always like to start by asking our guests, what they were like as little kids. How did they get involved in this field? Have you had personal experiences? What brought you to where you are today, such a prominent figure in this field?
But let me tell you this. I had an experience now, when I was 78, 82 years old. Okay? I'm 81, year 82. And I will say that it was 2 years old. I had my first experience, my first encounter.
Can I ask you to move your speaker maybe a little bit closer? You're a little quiet.
That's the best I can do, buddy. It's
getting
just
That's
feedback.
better.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
better.
Okay. Right. I had my first experience aged 2 years old, and at first, initially, and I thought this for 80 years. Get this, for 80 years, I thought, sorry, for 78 years, I thought what I'd seen was paranormal. It turns out that it wasn't, because I spoke to a guy called Daryl Sims. Now, you may have heard of Daryl. He's well into, alien abduction and stuff like that. And I told Daryl about this. It was a conference 2 years ago. He was speaking at it. And I was speaking to him in the hotel after the conference because we were both staying in the same hotel. And he stopped and he looked at me. He said, "My friend, that wasn't a supernatural occurrence. You were abducted." So it would appear I was abducted aged 2 years old. And having said that, it would explain hundreds of things that have happened to me in my life. It would explain them all. Absolutely would. So I'll tell you what happened. I'm 2 years old, remember? Okay. And I'm still laying in a cot. And I can see the spars of the cot beside me. And I'm looking out through this blanket, through the spars of the cot. And just opposite the cot was my father. He was a musician. And in my bedroom, there was a baby grand piano. Now, they're big instruments, you know. So there was this baby grand piano. And between me, the cot, and the baby grand piano, there's this figure standing. It'd be early in the morning, I guess, very early in the morning, but it was still bright light. The sunlight was streaming through on the bottom of the cot. And this humanoid is standing watching me. It's got its arms folded and it's wearing like a one-piece jumpsuit thing, and it's watching me. And I wasn't frightened, but I didn't want to let it know that I'd seen it. So I'm looking at my left eye and I can see this thing, and I know it's watching me. So I closed my eyes and opened them a couple of times, and it's still there. So being a kid, I just went back to sleep again, as you do. And when I woke up, it wasn't there. But I never forgot this.
Well, what did it look like?
It was humanoid, absolutely humanoid. It wasn't a straight. It wasn't odd looking. Just it was wearing a one-piece green jumpsuit and had like a fancy belt. And instead of a buckle, it was more like a device of some kind, I would say, like a machine. I mean, I'm only 2 years old. I can't describe it any better than that, you know, because I didn't know what to make it because I had no point of reference for this thing. But it's standing watching me anyway. Then I went to sleep. When I woke up again, it wasn't there. And for 78, 79 years, I always thought this was some sort of supernatural entity, you know, a spirit of some kind, whatever. But when I told Daryl Sims about this, he said, no. He says, that was an ET. He said, you were abducted, my friend. You were abducted and brought back. And like I say, that would explain everything that's happened to me throughout my life. Probably explains why I'm so deeply involved in this subject. So there you go. And like I say, all through my life, these events have happened. I mean, I haven't had to go out and seek them. They sought me. They just occurred. And when they occurred, I mean, at first I used to go, oh, wow, you know, but now I just say thanks. I just nod and say thanks. Okay, what's going to happen now? So that was it basically. And but I wrote the books. I got involved in hands-on investigating ghosts, poltergeists, you name it, investigating most things. But I guess
I have a question. Did they ever speak to you when you were young and tell you things that you remember?
No, never. That was the only time. I mean, but it wasn't all things like that I saw that was so focused and real. It's just things that have happened in general through my life. But mostly, I just say thanks and just let it roll over me now because they're going to happen anyway. So there ain't no point in getting all worked up about them. They just happen. So there you go. Yeah.
And
So
how many did it go on from that age forward? I mean, have you had contact over the years, off and on again, or was that just
I would
straight?
say it's not always been with entities, although the odd entity has shown itself to me. It's just been events that occurred and things that happened in my life that were, if you like, sort of supernatural, paranormally themed. And yeah, but like I said, I just don't question it now. I just accept it as real, and I don't get afraid by it. They don't frighten me because they're not going to harm me.
Right.
More likely, I'm going to harm them. But yeah, they don't. They're not going to harm me. So just let them happen and just let them sort of roll over me now. So it's no big deal.
Did you see UFOs then as you grew up?
I'm going to tell you something about that, and this is why I think Darrell Sims was right what he said. A little while after I saw this thing in the bedroom. Now I'm still in this, but in fact, I passed by the house that this happened in just like a couple of days ago. I drove past it, and the place is still there. And the little bedroom, the bedroom window, it's obviously still looking out on the street. Well, in the same room, I will say maybe about 6 months later, I wasn't in my cot then. I was lying, and I was in a bed then, like a single bed. And I had this vivid dream. Like I suppose you would say it was a lucid dream. And I saw this, and this is only like 6 months after I saw this thing. I saw this huge disc-shaped UFO, spacecraft, and I knew that it had come for me. And it wasn't there for fun. It was there to take me. But it didn't frighten me because I knew that it was going to be okay. So just a kid, this lucid dream just went on and then it just sort of stopped. So that happened, like I say, 6 months after I saw this creature. So I suppose what Darrell Sims said was right, that this thing was probably an ET and that ship had come to take me. So what else can I say? Is you just got to either accept it or you don't accept it. Well, I choose to accept it because it makes sense. You know.
Did you talk to your parents about it at all, or did you tell anyone?
Well, no. At 2 years old, I'm not going to listen to me anyway. I'm only a little baby, really. So, no, I never told them about it. Although my mother later on, she knew I was interested in this kind of thing. But it was just like, oh, Brian's got his interest, end of. You know, they didn't bother about it, so neither did I. And I just let it all flow, let it all happen. It was pretty good, yeah.
Wow. So what brought you to starting to research it seriously and write books about it?
Well, I guess it was reading books about it that made it something for me to do. I got maybe about 25 years ago, I really got involved in the investigation side of it. And it was like going to different places round about where I live, where there was claims of hauntings, poltergeists, you name it. Claims people claimed to have been abducted or seen UFOs. I mean, I've the number of times I've gone to people who I saw a light in the sky, and really that's all it was. It was a light in the sky. It wasn't a UFO. It wasn't a spacecraft. But you have to be careful what you're saying to people because you don't want to burst their dream. You know, if they thought they saw a spacecraft, well, hey, I saw a spacecraft. It wasn't just a light in the sky. It could have been an aircraft. Could have been anything. It could have been a spacecraft. Who knows? But for me, I kept their dream alive. Said, "Oh yeah, that was really amazing," and let's hope you see plenty more if you want it. But that was basically it. But as far as my own encounters go, I'll tell you one in particular that really took me off the fence. For years, I was very, very open-minded about this subject, especially in relation to ghosts and things of the kind. And it was a little hotel in a village called Doune, Doune, which is in Stirlingshire in Scotland here. And it was called the Highland Hotel. And this place had been like a number of houses that had all been they'd all been knocked through into one another, and the whole group of buildings was made into a hotel. Well, I was contacted by people who knew that the woman who was the manageress or the owner of this hotel, and she was having problems. She was hearing her name called, quite loudly when there was nobody else in the hotel but her, and would I go along and speak to her? So yeah, I had no problem. And I think it was the second time I was there. I was actually conducting an investigation, and I was sitting in our office. It was either late in the year or early in the year, because I know there was a roaring fire going in our office, and it was nice and warm. I was sitting in an armchair on one side of the fire. She was sitting in an armchair on the other side of the fire, and her brother was sitting beside me. He was sitting on a settee couch thing. And I'm sitting talking to her. Then all of a sudden, it was like a switch was pulled, and the place suddenly went cold. Bang! It was cold.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm looking at her, and over her would be her left shoulder. Yeah, over her left shoulder. In this sort of window alcove thing, this figure started to form, and it was humanoid, and it was big. This thing would be easily 7 foot tall. This big. Couldn't see any features, but it was human. It was. I want to say it was male, because I don't think it was female, but this thing was male. I got the impression it was male, tall, big. And I'm saying to myself, no, I don't want this to happen now. I don't want this to happen now. And I'm thinking out, I'm like shouting in my head, and I'm thinking, go away, go away. And this thing just went pop, literally pop, it went. So I thought,
what color was it? Was it a bright apparition? Or?
No, it wasn't a bright. There was no color to it. It was just dark black.
Oh,
and it was tall.
Okay.
It was more like an outline rather than a complete figure. But it was the outline of a human being, and I got the impression it was male. But the thing went, and I was quite glad that it did, because I didn't know what I was going to do if there was a confrontation with this thing. But it went. So that's how I knew there was something going on in this hotel. So I came back again, and I came back with two good psychic mediums I'd worked with for a while, and that was interesting, shall we say. There was one incident that took that again, and just on the same floor of the hotel that has happened. It was on a flight of stairs, a short flight of stairs going up to the living quarters where the owner stayed. And one of the mediums was stood at the top of the stairs. The other one was standing with me halfway up, and there was another person, I can't remember who it was. It was one of the people that was with us, was standing at the bottom. And the lady, her name was Anne-Marie, and she said, look, if this thing was any stronger, it would push us right off the staircase, because it doesn't want us here. And as she said that, this breeze started coming from the top of the stairs down, and this breeze turned into an absolute tornado. And I could feel my hair rippling in my head. This was shooting down the stairs at us. I said, is that what you're talking about? She says, yeah, that's it. It wants us out of here. But she says, I'll try and get us in contact with this thing. Because apparently what happened on the staircase, that I'm going back to like the 1700s. That's how, that we're going back like 300 years. That way back in the 1700s, when this place was still a house, the owner's daughter had got pregnant. And at that time, you just didn't get pregnant outside marriage. It just didn't happen, And she'd get rid of the child. Or her father had made it get rid of the child. And the medium said, I'm going to reunite her with a dead baby. And no sooner has she said that than you could almost, it was almost like the house breathed out. It went, You felt a sense of relief. It was absolutely palpable. You could feel this happening, like the house relaxed. And she didn't have to tell me that I've reunited the dead baby with the mother. I felt it happen. And I could smell things like, there was a smell like horses, and there was a smell like hay. And they were not unpleasant smells, just like farmyard smells. And the whole place just seemed much lighter after that. And the woman who owned the place said that she felt the place, she didn't know this had happened, but she felt a difference in the place as well. The place was just much lighter. It was easier to work in. Although I have been told that since then it's sort of darkened down again, but I've no intentions of going back and getting involved in that again because I got out of it. Because, and this sounds terribly selfish, but I've seen just about all it can show me, the other side. That I don't think there's much more I've got to learn because I've seen most of them. I've dealt with most of it. So, and I've no wish to go through all that again. So I just stopped going out in cases, hauntings and poltergeists. I just stopped doing it.
I have a burning question in my mind about this.
Sure.
Has a medium ever told you that you have medium abilities? Because the way you're talking and the way I'm reading you right now, you're psychic enough to be a medium. And it's like you're choosing not to. In other words, you're drawn to it, but you're like, don't. And it's amazing because you have the ability to feel what's going on. That makes you a medium. It's not that it's happening and you're just able to perceive it. That's not intuition. That's full-on psychic ability talk.
Yeah.
You know, and I find that interesting that you reject it a little bit, you know.
Well,
Why?
I reject the point as you just put my hands up and saying no. Okay. I don't want to get involved in it. I will say that my wife is psychic, and I know perfectly well she is. And there's a lot of stuff she'll say to me, and I'll say, "Wow, how did you know that?" You know, but yeah, I think my wife's pretty psychic, but I refuse to get involved in it at that level. I don't mind investigating it and poking around a little bit, but I don't want no. I just say no.
So you just want to be the observer. You don't want to be the participant, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Because I'm not kidding, though. It scares me. Some of the stuff really scares me. It really does. I'm not going to lie to you. It scares me.
Wow.
What was one of the more frightening type of experiences that made you like, no, I don't think so. I don't want to do this.
Well, when I was in that room, when I was talking to the lady who owned the place, and this thing started to form behind her, this male shape like 7 foot tall, that scared the hell out of me because I didn't know what I was going to do if I hadn't gone. Because I didn't fancy get my I didn't fight this thing. No. But there are odd times. I've been in graveyards and all sorts of scary places like that. You know, in the early hours of the morning and stuff. There was a time in Edinburgh. It's called the Covenanters Prison. You should Google this if you get a chance. Covenanters Prison, Edinburgh. Google this. And it's in the time of the Reformation in Scotland, when Scotland became a Protestant country as opposed to a Catholic country. And the Covenanters set up this group. There was hundreds of them. And they set up this solemn covenant. They were going to fight the English and stuff. And it was very complex and political and all the rest of it. But they had this Covenanters prison in Edinburgh, which is basically it's a length of grass, maybe about 20 feet wide, maybe 100 foot long. And it's actually full of mausoleums. There's mausoleums down each side of this building, this stretch.
Wow.
And yeah, they had them all in there, the Covenanters prison. And that's the only other time I've actually felt quite edgy, shall we say. Because there is one place, one particular vault in it that's supposed to be quite psychically active. And I thought it was when I was in it, and I hadn't been told about this, but I could feel this place was alive. What was the best way of putting it? And that is the only other place that I'll say that I knew was actively haunted, was the Covenanters prison in Edinburgh. Yeah, that it's worth Googling that. Have a look at it.
Wow. So all over Scotland, how many places have you gone where you've done research? I mean, did you just start marching around and going everywhere you found it, or?
Well, no. When I started off, I actively sought out people that were having issues, shall we say. And then after I got known, they started seeking me out, giving me a phone call, an email, or word of mouth, whatever. And if I thought I could help, I would go and help. You know, just jump in my car. My wife would come with me sometimes, and we'd just go out and try and help these people as best we possibly could. Sometimes we could, and sometimes we couldn't, because I don't think they wanted to be helped through them. They just wanted it confirmed that this was happening, I guess. It is the best way of doing it, you know, best way of saying it.
Yeah. Dang, that's amazing.
So did
So-
you research actual demonic possession cases as you wrote about in your, I think
Yeah.
it's
Well,
okay.
yeah, that one. I've had people come to me and they would describe what was happening in their home. And this, yeah, and I would say, this sounds to me like you've got something in here that's attached to you, but not attached to the house. And I have to tell you this, I use a form of exorcism that I developed, and it works for me, okay? This is not bell, book and candle, it's nothing like that, but it works for me. And I've got to emphasize that it works for me. And what I tend to do is I usually ask the people involved if they would leave me, if they would leave the house just for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It doesn't take long. And I carry out this act of exorcism. And what it basically is I get myself really angry, really worked up. And I start cursing and swearing and asking these goddamn things to get out of there. And I call them any name that comes into my head. And I tell them to get out, you've got to leave this place, you shouldn't be here, go back to where you came from. And that's what I do. But the odd thing is that in my house here, sometimes, hang on, I'll show you this. I used to use this as well, okay? It's a CD of frequencies that I developed that helped me do this, okay? I stick these on like a CD player and select the particular frequency that I think is going to help. And I run the frequency, and that seems to help do it. Although whether that's maybe just a comfort for me, I'm not too sure. But it certainly seems to work, whatever. And the odd thing is that I made a few copies of this thing. And there's a friend of mine who lives in London. I think he's deceased now, the poor soul. But he took one of these down back to London with him. He'd been up visiting with us, staying with us. And he took this back down to London and he started using it, playing the frequency during, they're like 4 or 5, is it 5 of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 and they all last 15 minutes, these bands of frequency. And he started using them when he was doing his seances, because he had his own spiritualist circle. And he said that when he was using some of these frequencies, it really ramped up the phenomena, and they seem to take place more easily. But they were originally developed for use within Rosslyn Chapel, and they certainly worked in there as well. But that's another story. When we get around to that.
Taught when I was younger that exorcism is not just a spiritual thing. It can be if you're very religious, but it's not a spirit attacking your soul. It's a spirit attacking your physical mind, and it takes over in the physical mind itself. Your spirit is still there, and it's kind of helpless to what the physical mind is doing because it cuts you off from yourself. Hearing who you really are talking. You're hearing that thing in your head, and frequency that you use is very interesting because that's one way to get the brain to reset. In other words, to kick out what's come in on top of it. And it's over talking your thinking and to make it boot out. And the fact that you decided to get angry at it is unbelievably cool because a lot of our abilities, our abilities are dead put into our ability to amp with strength, our pinpoint, how do I explain this? When you're angry, you could throw a baseball and hit the mark without even thinking about it, okay? And that's the point. You're directing your psychic ability, your energy, directly pinpoint into what the problem is. And even your frequency alone can be enough to boot it out of that brain, of that person's brain. And it's amazing to me that you've walked into this way. You actually are doing it the right way. I'm amazed. That's amazing to me. I've never heard anybody else say this. It's you can't cast a demon by throwing holy water on them and whatever, because in the head, they're not in the soul, they're in the head. The cranium is overriding it big time. And frequency is
really physically engage with these things.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you, that mediums have come into my house and they've stopped at the door and have said, wow, this is the most psychically calm house we've ever been in. Because it should be, because these brutes have been kicked out of this house time after time after time. That they really should, because I've really booted them out of this house many times. So it is a very calm house to come into. I
That's
try to
awesome.
keep it that way.
That's
Awesome.
fantastic.
So can you tell us a little bit about the Rosslyn story? What
Rosslyn. How long have you got?
We've got a while.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I've got about another half hour. Okay, I can run for another half hour. But because I got to go then. But Rosslyn, it was built, they started built and placed in the 1400s. And it's one of the most amazing buildings that I've ever been in. And when I wrote the book, The Rosslyn Frequency, I'll tell you how this came about. This was purely, I was just visiting the place. There was no ulterior motive. I was just visiting the place, going to see it, because I'd never been there before. And there was 2 or 3 of us there. One of the other people was a medium, as it happened. But myself, my wife, a couple other adults, and they're both mediums. And we're walking into the place, and this is before it was all done up, because they spent a fortune in this place trying to do it up, because it would literally fall into bits. And the carvings in this building are amazing. I mean, you've got the apprentice pillar. That's one of the icons of this place, the apprentice pillar, because of how it's carved and what it represents. But anyway, we were standing in the chapel, and one of the people going through started to tone. And as she started to tone, the building just lit up sonically. It was like it came alive, boof. And everybody, there were maybe about 15, 20 people in the building at the time. And we all sort of looked at each other, what's happened? What just happened? And this woman was toning, and as she toned, the building started to reverberate inside. And that's when I said, aha, there's something very, 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 very strange here. Anyway, she stopped toning, and the building just went, just collapsed. It was just an old building again. So that sort of tipped me in the right direction for that. So I came across something called the Devil's Chord, or the Diabolic Musica, which they call it the Devil's Chord. And the Catholic Church banned it in the Middle Ages. They couldn't use this particular chord. You've maybe heard of it. They couldn't use it in any churches. They were forbidden, verboten. And I suspect this was because when this chord or this particular musical note was played in a church, and the church was of the correct dimensions, the people were tripping out, if you like, and they were having spiritual experiences of their own. Okay. Now, the church wouldn't like this at all, because it would be the arbiter of who would and who would not have a spiritual experience. And they said, stop it. And this particular tone was banned again. Now, if you ever want to hear this Devil's Chord, you will hear it in the introductory music for the Simpsons TV series. It is played in there. Led Zeppelin used to use it. Black Sabbath have used it. Some of the heavy rock bands used to use it. Did you to unsettle the audience? But on a humorous basis, you will actually hear it in the theme tune for the Simpsons TV show. They use it on that. The Devil's Chord is used in there, which I suppose,
Wow.
given the nature of Bart Simpson, sounds about right.
Yeah, a lot of people sing. My daughter sings, and she was working with somebody once who was producing a record, and she was helping with it, with writing it and stuff. And she called me up one day and she said, there's something wrong with this. And I'm like, what's wrong with what? What are you talking about? And she said, the chords that he's playing are tuned down out of major into some kind of minor, but it's not minor. There's something about this chord system that he's using. Yeah. And he's using a Fisher bar to get to it, so he's playing down further into it. And she said, it's negative as all get out. And she said, it's creeping her out. And I said, don't do it.
Could have been the Devil's Chord, yeah.
Don't do it.
I can tell you one thing. The Devil's Chord itself The one I created, because there's not just one devil's chord. It depends on the key you're playing it in. Okay.
Right.
Now, I can give you the frequencies I used. That was F sharp, which is 370 hertz, C, which is 523 hertz, and A, which is 880 hertz.
Yep,
And
that's
you
it.
can combine all these, yeah, that's it. You combine these frequencies, and you'll get the devil's chord. So, but when I made this thing, there's the devil's chord. There's what was called the gematria equivalents. Now, I don't know if you've heard of the system of divination called gematria. It's done using numbers and letters. But I did a version of it using gematria, and also what is called the solfeggio frequencies. You can look them up as well. I've tried all sorts of stuff. Yeah, the solfeggios. I've tried all. They're all on that particular that disc, and I found it to be helpful. But I would need to know what I was getting into it before I would even take it. I mean, like I said, I don't do cases, and I stopped doing them years ago. But if I was ever in trouble with, I was ever involved in something of that again, and had to get a bit of help, I'd take it along a DVD player and play and try going through these frequencies just to see what happened.
Yeah.
But that's not to say it would be beneficial. It might make things worse, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
That is the problem with it.
Churches are built like parabolic dishes that are upside down, so that everything going up comes back down over the congregations. Okay.
Yeah.
And any good builder knows that if you're going to build something for sound acoustics, that's what you do. There's a problem with that, though, because anything from underneath it or in the room can shift the energy in there in the wrong way.
Sure.
That's why during earthquakes, churches are very vulnerable, because they amplify the vibration and the acoustics of it and takes it down.
Sure.
Builders build buildings, to be earthquake proof, and they build so that it's not a parabolic dish going both ways, inside out or upside, up and down. They're very careful about how they build buildings now, because the vibrational quality of that will take a building down in seconds. And a lot of people,
absolutely, yeah.
And it's like, but it just points out the destructive power of sound and the destructive power of amplitude and vibration and, hertz and all of that. And remember what it does to our body and to our brain at the same time. People say negative energy. You're pointing it out. Perfect. That's negative energy being used. And
yes, they were extremely worried when Tesla was still with us, that Tesla was going to do something that would literally split the earth apart.
Yeah.
Because he was into all sorts of stuff that was never ever talked about or written about. And that is why when he died, I think it was the FBI, I know there was some 3-letter agency around at the time that grabbed all these documentation.
Yes.
And flipped it. It just disappeared. And they wouldn't let anybody near it. So God only knows what he was working on, because we never found out. But I will tell you that on one event, in fact, Anne, my wife, was there at the time, and it was in Rosslyn Chapel, and it was on what they call, it was right up at the east end of the chapel. And I was standing in front of one of the altars. There's like 3 altars up there, okay, at the east end of the chapel, up against the wall. And they're not great big things. It was up against my shoulder blades, and I was standing against this thing. Then all of a sudden, this woman, somebody started toning in the chapel. And where I was standing, I believe that there's something very special. I'll keep telling you this, there's something very, very special about that chapel, about that building, how it's built and why it was built by Sir William Sinclair. I was standing there, then all of a sudden I started to lift off the floor. I mean, I could hold my hands out beside me like that, and I could feel like this isn't very explicit, but it's got to serve. I felt something coming up off the floor, and it was lifting me off the floor. And I sort of stumbled forward because I was literally off the floor, and I stumbled forward. And wow. I couldn't make it happen again. I couldn't do it again, but for that time it did. And Anne was standing right in front of me, but something was happening in the chapel. But the thing is that so many people, I mean, the place goes it's like a market now. People are in and out all the time. But before then, there was something very, very special, very unique about that chapel, about that building. But it's not like that now, because it's almost as if people going through all the time have leached a little bit away with them. Everywhere it goes, they take a little bit away with them. And all that harmonic power's gone. I think we've taken it. It's all been damped down, and it's just another building now. So the power that was in that chapel is now gone, I think, in my opinion.
Well, do you think it was you who was doing the levitating your own personal power, or was it something to do with the building or spirits, or what do you think?
It was nothing to do with spirits. This was the building was doing it. Whatever was underneath me at that point in the chapel was doing this, because at one time, when UFOs were really the thing, there was talk that there was part of a UFO hidden in the chapel. But if it's to be believed, there's everything but the kitchen sink hidden in that chapel. I mean, to me, what we do know is that the people buried in the chapel, who are the Sinclair Knights, many of them were buried in their full armor, their full battle armor, and buried down in the vaults below the chapel. But access to the vaults, you can't get access to the vaults. The Sinclairs won't allow it, for one thing, and the chapel trustees won't allow it, just in case something goes wrong. But we were once going to try an experiment, be very naughty. We shouldn't have, because we didn't tell anybody we were going to do this. And we were going to turn up in the chapel and start playing frequencies using, like discs and all sorts, amplifiers and all sorts of stuff. But we decided it might not be a good idea, because if the trustees found us, we'd get flung out and never be allowed back in again. So we just didn't think it was too risky. We just didn't do it. So, but I will say that if you ever get a chance, if you ever get the opportunity to go and visit Rosslyn Chapel, I encourage you to do so. It's an amazing building. An amazing.
Do you know how old it is, or when it was built, or what its history is?
Yeah, they started building it in 1440, and they built it over a period of about 70 years. I mean, this thing wasn't built in 6 months. This took decades to build. But when you see the carvings, the stone carvings that are inside it, you'll see exactly what I mean, because they're so intricate and so detailed. It's an amazing place. It really is. I mean, arguably, the official story is that it was built as a place for piety, a place of piety. It was a place for the Sinclairs to worship, if you like, the Sinclair family. But other people, I've had mediums in there that said the place is a spiritual machine, and it was designed to do something unspecified. But I've had it argued that it was designed to provide almost like a portal into another reality, another dimension. And it's
electromagnetic energy can be in mountainous areas. Scotland's got plenty of that going on.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of ley lines in Scotland where nowhere else it is.
That's the Apprentice pillar. That's it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To pick a church, and they will study the area first. The people say, this feels like this needs to be the spot. They're feeling it. They don't realize they're walking into an electromagnetically charged energy area. Yeah. They say, this is going to be a church here. We feel it. This is the best place to go. So they build it. And it took them a while to do it. And if you're whatever the sun is shooting out at Earth at any given time can charge what's up underneath that thing, and it can cause an anti-grav to it. A lot of anti-grav use is from electromagnetic currents and things like that. The elevated trains, the ones that go 280 miles an hour, those are cold. And you have cold in Scotland as well, very deep cold. So, but with all of those little parameters being met, you probably really did get lifted up off the floor. And resonance, the sounds that are coming can charge it even more. See what I'm saying? And it's amazing to me. Somebody ought to do a study of all the electromagnetic energy around that church, and go in there with equipment and figure it out what's going on.
Yeah. I've gone down with a tri-field meter looking for spikes and all the rest of it. You just don't get them. But Preston, you had an image up there a couple of images ago when you showed us the Apprentice pillar. Can you bring that up?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you zoom? Okay. Right. if you see the Apprentice pillar, you can see to both sides of it, all around it, there's these little cubes,
Yeah.
okay, and they're all going up, okay. They represent musical notes, and that was another thing that was on this disc, where some of the ideas came from. All these cubes, I think there's 320 odd of them, all told, up in this. They call it the Lady Chapel. It's sometimes called the Retro Choir, but it's also called the Lady Chapel. These little cubes, they're all different. Each one's different, okay? And because there's like patterns, actually engraved into them, and they're all different. So that was, I can't remember the guy who actually came up with this idea, but he reckoned that these are musical notes, if only we could decode them. And some of the frequencies on there, a few of the frequencies are based on these patterns, these news. Now, how were they actually created? Well, there was a concept called Chladni patterns, okay? This was a guy called Ernst Chladni, who was a physicist back in the 1700s. And what he was doing was he would take like a fine glass plate, he would sprinkle fine sand on it, and he'd use a bow, like a violin bow, and he'd bow. And the sand would take up a specific pattern, okay, depending on the note that was being played. They can do it much more easily now with frequency generators and things, signal generators. But they reckon that's how William Sinclair created these patterns, because there's nothing up there that he didn't approve of first. Every single brick and stone and statue, every carving, he actually approved what was going in there first. So he knew what he was doing when he had these cubes with all the patterns on them. And these are designed to produce a series of musical notes. And it's this series of musical notes that what I believe, and other people believe, will actually produce the miracle or the magic that is inherent in building.
See, that was my next question. How many people have had healings in that church? Because it seems like it should have been happening regularly.
I tend to think that nobody would know. No, the church wouldn't allow it. They wouldn't allow that to happen. I guarantee they wouldn't allow it. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. But if it did happen, it wasn't official. Yeah, there you go. That's the roof. That's along the roof of the chapel. That's right. That's inside the barrel roof. Yeah.
Boy, oh boy.
That's incredibly beautiful. You can tell it was very, very carefully built. They must have had some extraordinary knowledge about all of this kind of stuff that we're not even aware of now.
It is argued that the village of Rosslyn itself was built originally to house the masons that were brought from the continent, because Sir William hired hundreds of them from the continent, brought them to Scotland, and they built the chapel because he needed the expert knowledge that they had to build the place.
This does not surprise me at all. Mm-hmm. Not at all. My father was a 33rd degree Mason, and I am a star. Yeah.
Yeah. And, okay.
They hold the key of knowledge.
We'll just say I've been down that road myself. Let's just say.
Wow. Amazing.
Do you know if there are other people who've experienced levitation as well?
No, as far as I know, I'm the only one person. As far as I know.
I'm super interested in that topic. I wrote a book about it, and this is the first time I've heard this kind of experience of levitation. But it's fascinating to me because there are stories of, I think it's ancient Tibetan monks using sound to levitate heavy blocks of stone.
Yeah.
So clearly, these guys knew something. That's amazing. What a I want to visit this area. Wow.
The chapel itself, I mean, we could spend the next couple of hours just talking about the chapel, because there's so much to tell you. I have so much to tell you that I've forgotten most of it. That by the time I'm in another half hour's time when we've stopped talking, a lot more stuff will come back. But I mean, like I said, but the chapel would really arrange a program when I talked about the Rosslyn Chapel. Would be the best way of doing this, because there's so much else to cover in the time we've got left, really.
My goodness. Wow. Well, now we have to plan a trip, Preston. We had to go. I'm serious. You just gave us the greatest excuse in the world. This is, oh my goodness. We talk about going to Europe. We talk about going to Scotland. I love Scotland. I have Scottish roots, genealogy, and I've always wanted to go there. So I guess we're going to have to go now because I want to see that place really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Actually, it's funny you should say it because although I'm Scots, I've also got Irish roots. That my grandmother was Irish. My mother's, she was obviously Irish roots herself. So I think I'm like half Scottish, half Irish. So I'm like right in between the two.
Yeah.
me
I,
too.
I've got Scottish, Irish, English, you know. I'm like a Heinz 57 Mad Dog mix. But my
Now you're
Scottish roots
talking.
are
There
very
you go.
specific because my names are Kite, which is the Irish, and then Stuart. I'm a royal Stuart, by the way.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's come from the Stuart clan, and then the English, I'm a Plantagenet. I have that.
Yeah.
Edward the Second's my direct grandfather. So,
As far as I'm
fascinating.
aware,
Yeah.
as far as I'm aware, the Allans are what they call a sept clan of the McDonald's. So we're actually attached to the McDonald's somewhere. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about your UFO research as well.
Sure. Yeah.
What were some of the interesting cases that you worked on?
Well, mostly,
Yeah.
where do you go? Where do you even start?
Right.
To be fair, most of the cases that I investigated were lights in the sky, and that's all they were. I mean, you can't. I'm not going to big them up because you can't, because that's all they were lights in the sky. On the other hand, I've spoken to people who claim to have been in ships, claim to have been taken up. But the thing is about talking about UFOs, UAP, that it is what it is, because mostly they're lights in the sky. The other thing are people that claim to have been taken up, and they all tell much the same story. But as far as my own, as far as I'm concerned, I've had, again, it's been lights in the sky. All I can do is give you one particular case. When I'd only about 14 years old, and I had a friend with me. We'd been down at the cinema, one of the local cinemas. We were walking home. And it wasn't here, it was a place called Falkirk, which is about 25, 30 miles away. And we're walking home, and I looked up in the sky. It was a bright night, clear sky, bright stars. And I saw two stars moving in towards one another quite fast. They went in, and then they went shot apart like that. And I went, "Did you see that?" And he says, "Yeah." I mean, it was like that. They were moving in, then just boom, they shot apart really, really fast. What was it? Haven't a clue. Don't know. I don't know what it was, but it was something that was obviously not a meteor. It was nothing natural. It was something other than that. What it was, I don't know. It could have been a UFO. Maybe it was. But if it was, why did they go so close together? Then why did they shoot apart? Haven't a clue. Or maybe this was just me getting a sign, another sign that they were up there. They're watching me. I've actually wondered, are they, have I been tracked all my life?
Yes.
That's another thing I wondered, because I've had odd dreams and stuff, and these dreams have been so vivid. What they call them, lucid dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And I sometimes wonder if that's them talking to me. I've sometimes wondered that, to be sure. But like I say, this all dates back to when I was 2 years old, and I had that experience, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that would make sense to me because that's definitely the pattern we see. Contact starts very early, and given what you're doing and your interest in the subject, it makes total sense to me.
Because I will say that all my life, as I say, I've had this interest, and I was always that kid, that kid, look at him. He believes in spacemen and stuff like that. And eventually just said, okay, that's what I think. And the thing was, and I've been punched for it, I've been hit for it. And the thing was, if you didn't cry when they wanted, when they wanted you to, they came up and battered you and made you cry. And so, have I suffered for it? Yeah, I have. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think I'm the winner. So what can you say? Because I guess it used to bother me that people didn't have these experiences. I used to think everybody had these experiences, but you find that they don't. and they don't sort of trust, or they don't. Yeah, that's the best. But they don't entirely trust people that do. They think they're crazy. But yeah, there it is. You just got to live with it, I guess. Doesn't bother me now, of course.
Well, that's the path of a pioneer. You know, it's never easy to blaze a new trail.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. Yeah.
And you were out there talking about this stuff when long before it was popular, like today. And
Oh
even
yeah,
today,
absolutely, 100%. Yeah. I mean, as far as TV movies, I watch a lot of science fiction, horror, science fiction, especially science fiction. But I find now that stuff that was science fiction when I was a kid ain't science fiction anymore. It's science fact. So there you go. And I tend to think that I think there's only so far we can go with science, if you like, physical science at present, because I think that they're going to come to a point where mind is going to come into it as well, and you're going to have to incorporate mind into science and consciousness, because I think consciousness is the major overriding factor in all this, is consciousness. And until we fully understand what consciousness is, we're still going to struggle with this, I think. But there you
go. You're dead right. You are absolutely right.
I agree. Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I think it's so important not to just do the nuts and bolts research of ufology, but to embrace poltergeist phenomena, ghosts, and all of the stuff, because it's all connected. And I'm wondering what you feel about like this connection here, that people will have a UFO encounter and then they'll have poltergeist activity, or vice versa even. So there's some connection there.
Yeah.
Consciousness is a big subject, because our we've conflated spirituality with consciousness, and they're two separate things in my estimation, what I understand about it. One of them is physical. We have physical consciousness. We also have consciousness that's outside of the physical, and it's 24/7, 365, always on. And our abilities should help us be able to connect to that. And as a people on this earth, as humanity is not doing that really well right now, we got a road to walk through to get to that point where everybody's able to reach that, to be in contact with consciousness that they really are, that dwells within the body while you're here. Okay.
Yeah.
And science won't admit it.
Yeah. I belong to a group that meet every Friday night on Zoom, and it starts at 7:30. We have a chat. At 8 o'clock, we then switch to someone else. Somebody will do a presentation to the rest of the group, or we'll just have a general chit chat. But we've got doctors, lawyers, scientists, you name it. We've got writers, researchers, all sorts of people in this group. And it's fairly fluid. It drifts between like 14 people and 18 people on a weekend. Depends who's around. I tend to turn up every week because there's always something interesting. But consciousness is discussed, and because there is no limit to what consciousness can do. True. I think. And as I was alluded to before, at some time, we're going to find that consciousness gets outside the skull, and we'll be able to interact with other things just using thought. Although I tend to think that would require some sort of additional help, shall we say. That will be a mechanical factor in it. It'll not all be entirely mental. Some of it will need to be mechanical, I think.
Have you ever researched out of body experiencing?
I've looked at it. I've spoken to people that have them on a fairly regular basis. I mean, I've had them myself. In fact, there you go. I'm going to have to watch my time, guys. But my favourite out-of-body experiences, and I always know this is happening, and I can fly, okay? And I just take off and fly. And I fly around the towns, and I fly above the streets, and I fly. I remember once, this was going on, and I said, I'm well aware this is happening. And I know this is happening because I'm driving, I'm controlling it. But unfortunately, I can't have lucid dreams as often as I'd like, but I try to have them as often as I can, but it ain't easy. But I've been flying around. I was flying around. And I saw this, it was like a it was flying over some trees at the side. There were like trees. There was this house beside the trees, and I flew down and I was looking through, and I was flying past this window, and I saw it was like a TV set, and there was people watching the TV, and I flew in through the window and crashed at the back of the TV set.
No.
And these people were up screaming and shouting, and then that was boof. I woke and I was out of it.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that I would say 99.9% sure that happened.
Yeah, it
And
did.
I
It
crashed
did.
through that
You're
window.
describing it beautifully. High emotion. When you landed like that, it caused emotion in you and it sunk you right back into your body.
That's right. Boof, bang. It's
You
boof.
have
I was
that
aware of
innate
it.
ability. Yeah, that's an innate ability. We all do it all the time. Whether you're aware of
Yeah.
it or not, you're still OBing every night. We
Yeah.
don't just lay in the body and do nothing while the body sleeps. We go out and have fun, and connecting that is important. And psychic ability training helps you get to that point. I don't think it's
Yeah.
going to take a machine to help you do that. I think it's just will on your part to achieve it on your own. And I
Well,
think,
no, Dolly, no, that's not what I mean. That's not what I
okay.
mean.
Okay.
What I'm getting is that in order to interact with machinery, okay,
Oh, yeah.
I think we'll have to have some sort of interface where we can go to the interface, and the interface will interact with it. I'm saying a machine, it could be anything.
I would love to be able to do that. I've tried to do that. And what I end up doing is that I drain the battery right out of everything and I cut the electricity off to it. In other words, I absorb it and the machine can't work around me. And it happens to me all the time. It's hard to be in my own home because of it. Every time somebody comes over to interview Preston, they bring the cameras and the batteries and all this stuff. I knock them out every single time. The last poor guy that was here, I knocked out his board, the control board. He said, "Look at this." I can't believe it. And I said, "When you get home, it'll work again." He said, "How do you know?" And I said, "Because I'm the one sucking the life out of it." And when he got home, he emailed me and said, "Yep, that was you. It had to be because it's perfectly fine." And all his batteries were going dead around me. And I'm like, "I'm so sorry." And there's a point I'm making here with this. When you're that psychic, when you have that much ability, sometimes interfacing with the machine is more than we can accomplish. In other words, they need to have a machine that's clear course on the other side of the planet that can receive psychic signal from us to do it that way. We can't be in the same room with it because we'll dry it out. We'll just kill it.
Well, we know it's possible because ghosts do open and close doors. They turn lights on and off.
Have energy. That's right.
And there's plenty of cases of, the whole poltergeist phenomenon is centered often around a disturbed teenager. So they're doing it. They're affecting stuff.
This is a question that often gets asked on our Friday night sessions, especially when it's just like an open mic session, for want of a better word, is that where does the energy come from to move stuff? Okay. Because you're talking about something getting picked up, moved. That's intent and that is power getting expended from somewhere to do something. So where does that energy come from? That is one of the questions that we've never actually, and it's okay, you can always spirit does it, but that's not an answer. It just isn't an answer.
No, we do it. We're the generator. Your brain generates a powerful field of intelligence. In other words, you have brainwaves, right? Alpha, beta, theta, gamma, delta, and a few others. You can transmit that out, and that's an actual signal that holds power. It's electromagnetic. Okay, we can hear each other psychically because we're picking up on those signals. We all hear each other that way. When you think about, I want to do something and I want this to move, you're not telling it to move. You're using your energy, yourself, your electromagnetic energy. You amp it up. You turn the volume all the way up on it to the point that you grab it and you pull it toward you or throw it away or wherever you want it to go. That's you doing it. That's why poltergeists are so interesting to me, because young people who don't know better and they get mad about something, amping that energy to the point that it causes things to fly around the room or walls to fall apart or glass to smash.
Well, I've also heard a theory that the temperature, when the temperature drops, it's because the heat energy.
That's right. You don't get it. There's no such thing as a free meal. The energy's got to come from somewhere. So that's cold heat, get thermal energy getting transferred into kinetic energy. You can put it that way. But the thing is, I can get the question, I can get the thesis of electromagnetic. Okay. But what if the object that moves is wood? It's wooden. Wooden, wooden, a piece of wood is not a piece of metal. So it doesn't conduct electricity, be it electromagnetic or anything else. It's a piece of wood, it doesn't connect. It's an insulator, if you want to put it that way. So how does that get moved? That, again, opens up another door. You've got to start looking at it. I think. I could be wrong, but,
Yeah, no, I agree. And look at cases of physical mediums who are, lifting tables and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah. I mean, I've spoken to people that have been at seances like that, with your table tipping and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I've spoken to these people, but it doesn't help me any. Because we're still back at this. You're still in the same boat.
Yeah.
Questions, but no answers. But guys, look, I've thoroughly enjoyed this, guys, but I'm really going to have to go.
All right. Well, before we let you go, can we do a very, very quick rundown of your books and just let us know what they're about?
The heretics past and present. How can I explain it? It's pretty much people who have been persecuted as heretics for ideas that went against the norm. I get challenged, especially the church in the Middle Ages and late Middle Ages. That was some of the heretics were. The most awful things were done to them just because they wouldn't accept what the church was saying. And
right.
But that's basically what it's about. It's heretic, what it says about heresies. That
right.
Scientific or whatever. Book of Secrets is exactly what it says. It's a whole bunch of different stuff with the aliens, ghosts, and ancient mysteries. But anything you can think about is pretty much in that book. I mean, I'm not saying, I ain't going to say I'm giving you I'm giving you an answer. I'm not saying it's the answer, but it's an answer that works for me, and it may work for you if you actually read it. But that's what that's about. What it says: secrets, ancient secrets. I suppose.
Nice.
Love the cover, by the way, very intriguing.
When I saw that cover, I went, "Wow! I'll have that one. I'll have that one."
All right, Rosslyn, we already talked about. So
yeah, Rosslyn Between. Well, I chose the subtitle "Between Two Worlds" because. Again, I've spoken to mediums about this, and we've decided that building that building exists in this reality like 999%. Okay, but there's a 0.1% it's in another reality. So that is why you get this transfer between the two, because it's not entirely 100% in this reality. I don't think.
Wow. Well, you just gave me an idea.
It was built to be that way.
Yeah, I do astral projection. I'm pretty good at it. Dolly's much better.
Okay, cool.
We're going to have to try visiting it out of body and see what it looks like.
Yeah, I want to go for a walk. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, tell me what you find.
I will. We will.
Let me see the next one. Project Phenomena, Evaluating the Paranormal.
That was about a guy, the main part of that book. Now, I don't know if you ever heard of this guy, a guy called Don Phillips. And Don... he came up with a whole bunch of stuff that he was doing. And I ain't going to even attempt to go into it here because it's too complicated and it's just too widespread. There's a whole book about the one guy, or most of the books about the one guy.
Mm.
And this is mostly about a guy called Don Phillips and some of the stuff that he was actually doing. And some of it was pretty amazing at the time, absolutely astonishing.
Yeah. All right, well, maybe next time.
Really.
If we can get you back again. All right.
More than happy. The Dark Messiah, magic, gnosis, and religion, and that's exactly what it's about.
Wow. So you're including the agnostics in that? The Gnostics? Gnosis, yeah. Okay.
Well, Gnostics, Gnosis. Well, I suppose the Gnostics would come into that as well because all the Gnostics were doing was seeking knowledge, basically what they were doing. But it's mainly about magic and religion because at the end of the day, a religious service is a magical service because when in the Catholic Church, in transubstantiation, when you're bringing Christ to the altar, which is what you're doing, that is a magic ceremony. And most religion is magic in disguise, but if you like, it's the acceptable face of magic. That's the best way of putting it. And the book is about that.
Okay.
Connection.
That one looks a little scary, but very interesting. But not as scary as this one. I Cast Thee Out, Poltergeist, Possession, and Exorcism. So
that's exactly what. Well, the title says it all. I mean, there's nothing I can add to that. It's about various poltergeist cases, cases of possession, and the exorcism that were carried out to get rid of the stuff. And that's exactly what the book is about. The cover pretty much tells it. Because each of these books is a presentation on its own. It's the best way of putting it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you covered it, because these are things people need to know do happen.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Are all of these on Amazon?
Some of them are out of print. That's the problem. Some of them are out of print because of the subject matter. It's a niche subject, and you'll get a printer. They'll run off maybe 2,000 or 3,000 copies, and that's fine. Then once that 2,000 or 3,000 copies goes, if it's not getting picked up and there's no widespread worldwide sales, they just fall off the end and they just go. I mean, I've got all the original. I've got all that. That's my own case. These are my own case files. Haunted places, haunted people, haunted places. Those contain the cases that I have personally worked on, all sorts of stuff, but including the hotel that I told you about in June.
Okay.
That case is in there. Yeah.
Hotels are notoriously haunted. All right, one more.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Hole in the Sky. I'm intrigued about this. Which
The Hole in the Sky. That is one of the few real lengthy attempts I've had to examine the UFO phenomenon. Okay, and that there's a lot about ufology in there and my own thoughts on the matter, and where I think these things originate, what they are, how they operate. And it's just a lot of this stuff is just like a download. I mean, I wrote about 14 books in a period of about 6 years. I wrote these 14 books. And it was almost as if it was like I had to get out of my head and get it out and get it on paper and get it out there and share it with people I wanted to see.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is that I think I've got about another book left in me, but I think that's about it, really. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what is it going to be about? What is the book going to be about, do you think?
Consciousness.
Thank you. Awesome.
It's a huge subject because you're starting to move into brain, mind, consciousness, the way the brain works. I'm no scientist, I'm no physicist, but I think I'll be able to put it in layman's terms that people can understand, perhaps appreciate and enjoy more than putting in cold scientific terms, because the whole subject of consciousness is absolutely mind-blowing in its complexity. That I'll try and put it in terms that the layman can understand, because if I can understand it, anyone can understand it. And that's the way I try and think about it anyway.
Okay.
Wow. Well, thanks so much, Brian. Super interesting. We could talk to you for hours. I do want to let everyone know that all your books are listed in the show description and some links as well. So I hope people do check them out. They absolutely deserve to be read. Rosslyn Chapel story, that is really just, I'm going to have to think about that one for a while.
Oh, yeah.
We go to Scotland, we're going to look you up. I'm not kidding. And after we go see it, or maybe get you to go there while we're there at the same time and do another show.
I'd love that. Yeah, I'd love to be, because there's things I'll show you in Rosslyn Chapel that the guides won't show you.
All right.
Not because they don't know they're there. Well, they know they're there, but they can't talk about it. They just can't talk about it.
Wow. Yeah, well, thank you again. It's been an absolute delight. We would love to have you back on again.
Yes.
In the future.
Absolutely.
Whenever. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Do you have any last words for our folks?
No, not really. It's been great meeting you, Preston, after all these years, to meet you, more or less face to face, and meeting you, Dolly, as well. So absolutely great. And I just hope we can do this again. And God bless and take care.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Brian.
Okay, take care. Bye now. Bye. Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Lightgate. We're coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We're on Facebook, we're on Roku, we're on Rumble, and we are on YouTube. God bless everybody tonight. Bye-bye. See you later.
Bye, guys.